Our next speaker is well known for his willingness to help others. He's a tireless educator, and on many nights and Saturday mornings, you'll find him in front of a dry erase board, tirelessly teaching other inmates math. He's one of those guys that you can ask a simple question, like, hey, how's it going? And sometimes he'll give you an answer that'll have you pondering all day long. He's a teacher, a mentor, and a big thinker, and he has a big idea for us today. Straight out of the mean streets of Compton, please welcome Anthony Wright.
He's a mess for that one. I know you better get this fly. I saw it land on Jarrell's face. I was like, oh, no. But before I begin, I want to make sure that it's understood that what I'm about to say is in no way meant as an attempt to diminish the impact that my actions or the actions of the men and women that I speak for has had on victims, victims' families, and even our families. I'm here to spark critical thinking and share my ideas of implementation towards solution to mass incarceration. So with that said, my first question is, why are we here? And I don't mean physically. I mean, why do we find ourselves in a place and time where mass incarceration exists? And since we find ourselves in such a place, that means that we're in the wrong place philosophically, ideologically, economically, socially, which includes linguistically and morally. I can go on and on. But that's why I want to talk about prison abolition. Now, what does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean that we're to get rid of places used to house those that have broken the law. But what we do with them while they're housed, and even how long we're keeping them housed, needs to be abolished. The prison system as it stands today needs to be abolished. It would be crazy to think that the majority of people are okay with the status quo, the inhumane conditions, the thrown away lives, the racial disproportionalities, the disenfranchisement for those who have served short and long-term sentences and are returning back to the community. To give humankind the benefit of the doubt, I'm going to have to say that most people are unaware, right? So the way to resolve this, once we have informed them, would be prison abolition. So what would prison abolition entail? Well, let's compare it to what it took to abolish another system that was embedded in who we are as Americans. I'll just throw one up there. Slavery. Now, it's not a far reach to make the similarities clear. All right, slavery began as one thing. Racism was injected into it. It became another. Everyone realized it was wrong. It still went on, but then it came to a head and it was abolished. Now, prison began as one thing. It has become another. Racism wasn't injected into it. It's a part of our society, so it was a part of it from the beginning. We're realizing everything that where we're at now with prisons is wrong. It's still going on, but we're coming to a head. Now, where do we go from here? Was that too vague? Well, bear with me. Look at the ideas and beliefs that if we were to even change the prison system as it stands today, there would be criminals running amok, causing chaos, killing, pillaging, etc. And we've heard politicians use such language, which is really just fear-mongering to keep the system in place, just like slavery. Look at the economic reliance on these institutions. Not just the labor of the prisoners, but they have companies that exploit the labor of our families, just like slavery. Look at the psychological impact of the language, where we, and I say we because I speak from experience, we have adopted the discriminatory and demeaning language used to describe us, just like slavery. If we all take a field trip right now and go out into the yard and ask someone, you a convict? You're going to hear, hell yeah. And be able to tell you who's one, who's not one, who's about to be one, summa cum convict or whatever. Since when did it become okay to be described as something that is systematically abhorred? I'll tell you when. When society has otherized you, meaning led you to believe that you'll never be anything else than the other, human nature will embrace that. and irrationally say, well, if this is all I'll ever be, I'll be the best at it. Now, is the similarities more clear now? Are you with me? Okay. So, let me tell you what's not like slavery. And that's who is susceptible to this institution called prison. That's why 1 out of every 106 white males are incarcerated in the United States of America, which is ridiculous. And that's why 1 out of every 36 Hispanics are incarcerated in the United States of America, which is atrocious. And that's why 1 out of every 15 African American males are incarcerated in the United States of America. And that's absolutely reprehensible, especially when you compare these ethnicities to their representation of the population. Now, for a second, hold the thought of what prison abolition would entail, because that's bringing up another subject. Because it's impossible to have an honest conversation about one human rights issue without broaching another, and that's race or racism. And no one likes talking about race because of the blame that's inferred, or they think it's going to be a finger-pointing session. But talks about race don't have to be so polarizing. All they have to be about is facts, history, empirical evidence. And I'm sure everyone in here has recognized their ethnicity and its difference to others. But I want you to think back to a time when you realized that there was a system in place to distinguish those differences. It would be a friend, school, family member. I learned from my grandmother. Now, my grandmother was the glue to the family. She kept everything together. She was also my best ally. Little Tony could do no wrong in G-Mom's eyes. All right? And anytime I would get in trouble at home, I'm trying to find a way to Grandma's house, because she's the magistrate. She's going to handle this for me. And I know when I get there, she's going to ask me, do I want to go swimming? And I'll be like, well, I don't know. I might not be able to. I'm on punishment. And so she'd be like, on punishment? Let me call your daddy. She'll call him up. Larry, why are you mistreating my baby? What'd he do? Fighting his school? Well, you know, he literally probably protecting himself. And I'm in the background like, yeah, you tell him. And she'll keep on going. She'll tell me the dirt. I didn't punish you when you hit that dude upside the head for talking crazy to your sister. I'm like, Father, get him. But I could do no wrong in my grandmother's eyes until this one time. Now, my father, he was a mechanic. He's a reverend and a mechanic. And he was really good. And when he would fix things, a lot of times the people would say, well, you know what, if you can fix this old clunker or whatever, you can have it. And that's how we came up on the motorhome, little cozy thing. And my father liked to fish. And if he liked to fish, we all liked to fish. So we were in Salt Lake City. And my mother, as we're going along the road, she's giving me little history lessons and things. And we passed a Ku Klux Klan hall. And I mean, I just know they wear hoods. I wasn't worried. They'll never see me in Compton. I didn't care. And we pulled into a gas station right next to it. And I could tell my mother was uneasy. So she saw my father out getting directions. And she said it reminded her of when she was a child. And she saw her father out getting directions in a place in Tennessee. And as he was leaving from the directions, a lady came out of the store and said, Leroy, you know you told that boy wrong. I didn't get it at the time. She was telling me that her father was called a boy, but I thought it was funny. So calling people boy for the next couple of hours was my little job. Shut up, boy, talking to my brother, talking to everyone in the car. Shut up, boy, boy, until I said it to my father. And my mother gave me one of those looks, you know, those looks that come with your whole name afterwards. Now, I didn't get in trouble, so to speak, but I was slightly admonished. And if I'm even slightly admonished, I'm telling Grandma. So I couldn't wait to get back so I could tell her. And I know she was going to ask me how the trip went. And when she did, well, it could have been better. Well, what happened? And I told her what happened. And she said, you did what? She said, you lucky I wasn't there. And she sent me to the room. She said, go in that room and don't come out till dinner's ready. And I'm sitting up here like, who is this? What happened to my ally? They done got to you too? Can I get a hug? Swim, what's going on? None of that worked. Dinner's ready, she calls me out. She says, you know why I sent you in there? And I said, no. She says, I haven't been that mad since your father did the same thing. And I'm thinking, well, here goes more dirt on my father. She said they were coming from Wichita, Kansas to Los Angeles. And my father was running up and down the aisle of the train singing Mama Little Baby Loves Shortbread Bread. And for those who don't know, that's a racially charged song making fun of blacks. And he didn't know any better. He's running up and down the aisle singing. She grabbed him and sat him down and said, "Well, you better stop." And the white people on the train were like, "No, laughing," and even offered money. "No, let him go ahead, let him do it." My grandma looked at me, she said, "There is a lot of ignorance out there. Don't help spread it. It's doing fine on its own." Now, I didn't understand what she was telling me at the time, but she planted a seed because I pissed my grandmother off, and that's not even possible in my world. I didn't think that was possible. But I began to question as I'm growing up. And I'm wondering, why is everybody I know poor and have run-ins with the law? Is this the ignorance she's talking about? Why in my neighborhood does juvenile hall and even the adult system seem inevitable? Is this the ignorance she's talking about? Why is it a rite of passage? Are blacks and Hispanics just the worst decision makers innately or inherently in the United States of America? Absolutely not. There are systems that create those outcomes. And that's what my grandmother was trying to tell me. You do not have to be racist in your heart and mind to produce a racist outcome. The system will do it for you. All you have to be is ignorant of the facts. And so when it comes to what prison abolition would entail, same exact thing as it took to abolish slavery. A war. Now hold it. I'm not telling anybody to go grab a musket and some powder and reenact something from the 1800s. Because back then, that war was about the wrong thing anyway. If there had been a war on that ignorant system that kept the practice of slavery in place, we wouldn't be seeing remnants of it today. And so when it comes to prison abolition, we can't worry about the practice of incarcerating. We need to have a war on the underlying system. There needs to be a war on the ideas and philosophies that we can just throw human beings away. And I use such strong language because if you put something that has been deemed corrupt, damaged, or unfit in a place where you never plan on checking to see if it's retained any value or has any redeemable qualities, isn't that the definition of garbage? Any state that has a prison system should also have an equal system to find out if there are redeemable qualities in these ones that are being sentenced, especially in a state that seems so progressive. Why not parole? There was a TEDx here, right at this institution, actually right here on the stage, and it was a man who gave a talk named Nick Brown, and he's the counselor for the Washington State governor. And in his talk, he said, there needs to be a release valve for those who are serving long-term sentences and who have beat the system. And he went on to explain what he meant by beat the system. He said, when someone comes to prison and becomes something other than what these systems are known to produce. He also said, second chances shouldn't be looked at as foreign or something weak. This is the governor's office. There needs to be a war on the economic structure. Our families are taxed 2 and 3 times, and companies are allowed to monopolize and sell refurbished goods at exorbitant amounts. Why have prisoners and their families become commodities? It has become okay for these companies to base their supply on the demand that unconditional love brings. There needs to be a war on language. Offender, convict, those identities that you heard about earlier. It has become okay to otherize and describe people that puts them in a way that they would be undesirable to any society. We need to stop otherizing those incarcerated. We need to stop describing ourselves that way. Let me tell you about another word that they spend millions on all the time, this reentry. That word alone alleviates the community's responsibility to reintegrate those who are coming back to society. If a man or woman is serving 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and all society is saying is, yeah, you can re-enter, but you're on your own, that's a recipe for failure. There needs to be a war on the belief that racism has nothing to do with the charging, sentencing, and capacity in reference to the population in prison. Yes, mass incarceration affects all. But because of racism, blacks and Hispanics or more subjected to this institution called prison. And I say war because reform won't work. This system needs to be uprooted with the understanding that we made a grave mistake in going down this road in the first place. And when we begin this abolition, we cannot let little pieces of the system linger to appease those who have a different opinion because of how they were conditioned. And when we begin, everyone must be at the table. Black, Hispanic, Asian Pacific Islander, Native American, white, all those affected, not just those who helped put the system in place. And so I challenge you today to ask yourself, what are you doing to bolster or maintain systems that you know are wrong? If the answer is nothing, then ask another question to yourself. What are you doing to stop it? And if the answer is still nothing, I want you to remember, 2 negatives make a positive. You're pushing that ignorant system right along. Please, let something that you heard today spur you into action. Thank you.